It all began on a crisp autumn evening when I decided to take the plunge and meet Sarah, a girl I'd connected with on a dating app. Our initial conversation had been engaging, and I was excited to see where this first date would lead. I suggested a cozy restaurant in the heart of the city, but Sarah had a different idea. She wanted us to visit an abandoned hospital on the outskirts of town. Despite my initial reservations, the thrill of adventure drew me in, and I agreed to her unusual suggestion. I shared her photo and phone number with my best friend, just in case any unforeseen happened. On the night of our unconventional date, we left the city lights behind and ventured toward the outskirts. The road leading to the abandoned hospital was devoid of any other travelers. It seemed as if the world itself had isolated that place. We pulled up near the abandoned hospital. Its windows shattered, and its walls were covered in layers of graffiti. I parked the car and we stepped out into the cool night air. The refreshing, cool breeze whispered through the nearby trees. Sarah grabbed the drinks from the back seat and handed them over to me. We started walking towards the entrance. Just as we approached the entrance, Sarah's face turned pale, her eyes widening with realization. She frantically patted her pockets and exclaimed that she had left her mobile phone on the car's rooftop while pulling out the drinks. She asked me to wait for her while she retrieved it, and with a quick, almost anxious nod, she hurried back to the vehicle. I stood there in front of the hospital's imposing entrance, and she came back within a minute. Sarah and I ventured deeper into the abandoned hospital. Broken glass crunching underfoot added a discordant soundtrack to our every step. The air inside was thick with the scent of mold and decay. Dust particles danced in the dim light that filtered through broken windows, giving the entire place an ethereal, haunted quality. I was tempted to use the flashlight on my phone to illuminate our path, but Sarah insisted that she knew the place well and could guide us. Her confidence in the darkness reassured me. We moved through the abandoned hospital with Sarah leading the way. She navigated the winding halls with confidence. Eventually, our exploration led us to a narrow staircase that spiraled upwards. The steps creaked and groaned under our weight. As we climbed higher, the darkness seemed to intensify and the air grew cooler. Finally, we emerged onto the rooftop, and the sight that greeted us was breathtaking. The night was inky black, the stars obscured by the looming presence of the abandoned hospital. The only source of light came from the distant glow of the city on the horizon. I reached into my bag and retrieved the beers I had brought for us. With a pop and a hiss, I cracked one open and offered it to Sarah. She declined, her eyes fixed on the city lights in the distance. She claimed she would wait a little longer before indulging in a drink. We settled on a patch of cracked concrete on the rooftop, the city lights flickering like distant stars. The wind whispered through the broken windows of the hospital. In the midst of this desolation, we began to converse, our voices hushed, as if we were afraid to disturb the silence. Time seemed to stretch in those moments, and we talked for what felt like hours. Our conversation covered a range of topics, from our favorite books to our most treasured childhood memories. Despite the eerie surroundings, a strange sort of intimacy grew between us. Almost 15 minutes passed in this way, and suddenly, I noticed a faint glimmer of light coming from below, accompanied by the soft, rhythmic sound of footsteps drawing nearer. An uneasy shiver ran down my spine as I turned to Sarah, my voice trembling. I asked her if she had invited someone else to join us, or if it was common for others to visit this forsaken place. Sarah's response was nothing but a disconcerting silence. Her earlier confidence had evaporated, replaced by a look of unease that mirrored my own growing panic. The chill in the air seemed to seep into my bones, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. The approaching light continued to draw nearer, and the rooftop transformed from a place of curiosity into one of impending dread. My heart raced as I considered the possibility that we were not alone, that something sinister lurked in the darkness. Panic tightened its grip on me, and I began to imagine the worst possible scenarios. At that moment, it was as if the entire world had shifted, and the rooftop that had once seemed so isolated became a terrifying battleground of unknown forces. As the light finally reached us, it flashed upon our faces, temporarily blinding me. Panic surged through every fiber of my being, and I felt a scream building in my throat. But before I could react, a voice from below pierced the night air. It was a voice that stood in stark contrast to the eerie atmosphere of the abandoned hospital. A smooth, calm voice of a woman calling me by name. "Thomas, what are you doing up there? I asked you to wait for me." The voice belonged to Sarah, the very girl I had come to meet that night. My blood ran cold and I turned my head, fully expecting to see Sarah beside me. But to my horror, there was no one there. I stumbled back in terror, my mind struggling to make sense of the inexplicable. Fear and confusion engulfed me as I realized that the person I had been conversing with on the rooftop was not the Sarah I had arrived with. In that chilling moment, I understood that something sinister and beyond comprehension was unfolding before me. My instincts screamed at me to run, to escape the nightmare that had taken hold of that forsaken rooftop. Without a second thought, I bolted toward the stairwell, my heart pounding and my breath ragged. I jumped down from that water tank and spotted Sarah. She was standing there with her phone in her hand. "Sarah, we need to get out of here. Something is terribly wrong," I pleaded, my voice quivering with fear. Sarah's response was a mix of confusion and fear. She struggled to make sense of my frantic words. However, she decided to cooperate. The stairwell seemed to stretch endlessly before us as we descended, our footsteps echoing in the cold silence of the abandoned hospital. Fear clawed at my heart, and the unsettling events on the rooftop replayed in my mind like a never-ending nightmare. As I navigated the labyrinthine passages, my mind raced with questions. Who had been on the rooftop with me? Where was Sarah, the girl I had originally met for the date? And what sinister force had lured me into this nightmarish scenario? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we reached the entrance and stepped out into the moonlit darkness. We decided to return to the city. We found refuge in a cozy cafe, its warm ambiance providing a stark contrast to the eerie darkness of the hospital. Over steaming cups of coffee, I finally gathered the courage to explain the whole story to Sarah, who remained blissfully unaware of what had transpired there. Her eyes widened with each detail, and as the story unfolded, I could see a mixture of disbelief and fear wash over her. As we left the cafe, the weight of our shared experience bound us together, our resolve unshaken. We knew that our journey was far from over. If you find this content entertaining, please consider giving it a thumbs up by clicking the like button below. It really helps support the channel. And if you haven't already, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update from us. Thanks so much for being a part of our YouTube community here.